Welcome! This is the third episode of a short series of videos which shows some building work I'm doing on my G-scale garden railway. This weekend's work concentrates on finishing off the alignment, the gradient and the cutting in of the bridge of the rebuilt line near St John Station. Stick with me to see how I finish the steel work whilst making sure that the gradient is steady up from the station over the bridge and onto the embankment on the other side of the path. These first views show how the area looks as I stand back drinking coffee before getting stuck into the cutting, the welding and the setting out of the trackbed steels. If you haven't seen the previous videos, please do, and while you're at it, click the subscribe what's it. This helps the channel and encourages me to keep up with making more videos. If you haven't yet, yeah, go on. In my last video, I mentioned a maximum gradient for my garden railway as being half a bubble, shown on my long spirit level. My son asked me for a more accurate measurement, and I have to confess the vagueness of the bubbleness is not really very good. With a little practical testing, I've worked out that the half bubble equates to a gradient of 1 in 30. This is obviously a great deal steeper than the old 1800s mainline maximum gradient of 1 in 100, but, well, my little trains can cope with this. Using my set of short levels, I can keep an eye on the trackbed being flat in the transverse plane while I'm concentrating on the gradient. First, I need to trim off the ends of the old edging, ready to take the new section. My old angle grinder is out again, and this time with a new cutting disc. Checking the gradient and the transverse flatness, I needed to make some fine adjustments before moving on to the next part. I used my old arc welder to fix the first piece in place. I then used some old pieces of wooden trackbed to form the sides below the surface of the track, so the concrete edge is kept tidy below the steelwork. I added stone lumps and hardcore to form a base layer. I want a top surface of at least 50mm of concrete, but tend to have a further 100mm of hardcore or block underneath to aid stability. All this gets tamped down firmly, compacted and left ready for the concrete to follow. As I work along the line, I've reused some topsoil to tidy up the flower border. Moving on, I need to get the exact position of the bridge abutment sorted. Firstly, I marked the cut points on the steel side rails of the trackbed and then cut these off square. The end of the fixed section needs a transverse piece of angle iron, so I cut a suitable length and shaped a lapped joint. Using G-clamps, I held the transverse end piece in place ready to weld up the corners. In addition to the end piece, I added another cross piece underneath to aid stiffness. Right next to this, I've hammered in an old bit of steel into the ground as a peg and welded that to the cross piece. This all helps the steelwork keep steady in place. Arc welding does not always leave a smooth joint, at least the way I do it, so I usually use the angle grinder to tidy up the outside surfaces if they show. Technically, the cutting disc shouldn't be used for flat grinding, but with just the 2 or 3 corners to tidy up, I couldn't be bothered to get out my other angle grinder with the surface grinding disc. Shh, don't tell anyone. Yep, and still all in good shape. Gradient correct and the track bed is flat across from side to side. It's always good to keep checking. To support the removable bridge, I've added 2 short stubs of angle iron of slightly larger cross-sectional size to project out of the ends of the fixed track bed steels. These will form the basis of the bearing surfaces for the bridge. I then began forming the main base frame of the bridge, a simple rectangle of angle iron. I cut and welded each piece in situ to make sure that the bridge fitted snugly, but not too tight. I'm mindful that changes in temperature will change the length of the bridge a little, but not very much over that short length. I kept on cutting lengths, cutting lap joints, welding, cleaning up surfaces, step by step along the length of the bridge and over to the other abutment. I kept checking the corners are square and the steel sides are flat from side to side. And, as always, I use my long spirit level to make sure the gradient remains at a constant half bubble throughout the track length, or should that be a gradient of 1 in 30. By the time the afternoon was moving on, I'd finished all the steel work. The 4 steel bearing surfaces for the removable bridge are now in position. The bridge frame is welded up and in place. Most of the hard core is tamped down, although I will have another go at that before adding the concrete. As this day finishes, I can remove the bridge base so that the path is clear again. Next time, I'll concentrate on creating the wooden shuttering ready for the concrete to form the bridge abutments and the embankment. That will be featured in the next video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please add them to the comments box below. I've added some notes to the description below, so take a look at these for more background information. Thanks for watching and bye for now.